Margaret Thatcher enraged the Queen by defying Commonwealth leaders in a vote over apartheid, newly declassified files reveal. Her Majesty was so furious that she considered scrapping her weekly audience with the Prime Minister, a Buckingham Palace source told the Diplomat. The fallout between the two leaders occurred at a Commonwealth conference in 1987. Files from the National Archives of Ireland show that the former Tory PM sparked international anger after refusing to back tighter sanctions against South Africa. The move had been agreed by 47 leaders at the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Vancouver, Canada, but Mrs. Thatcher refused, thwarting efforts to end apartheid and enraging heads of state. An Irish diplomat based in London reported back to Dublin that it was widely regarded that the PM had blundered badly and she well knows but cannot admit her mistake. After speaking with a source at Buckingham Palace, he sent a confidential message to the Taoiseach's office. The diplomat wrote, "There is a wide view too that the Queen is in a rage with Mrs. Thatcher over her handling of the sanctions. The Queen, it is said, sees the insensitivity as further damaging her Commonwealth at a sensitive time." Using the nickname Brenda, which was given to the Queen by satirical magazine Private Eye, the diplomat continued, "A source in the palace said that Brenda was seriously considering cancelling last night's Tuesday audience with the Prime Minister. This audience has existed for more than a century." The diplomat also feared that Anglo-Irish relations could suffer in the short term at least by Mrs. Thatcher's present mood. He said, "We have in the past seen some examples of how the PM's moods can make life more difficult for those around her." When David Cameron met Nelson Mandela in 2006, the former Tory PM apologised for Mrs. Thatcher's miss and shy taken opposing sanctions and said she was wrong to have referred to Mr. Mandela's ANC party as terrorists. He said, "The mistakes my party made in the past with respect to relations with the ANC and sanctions on South Africa make it all the more important to listen now." Margaret Thatcher savaged John Major for scrapping the poll tax, in a meeting that set the tone for their increasingly bitter relations. The flagship policy was a key factor in the Iron Lady's downfall and was axed after Mr. Major succeeded her in November 1990. During a meeting on January 3, 1991, she told him, local authorities would draw the conclusion that it was such a bad tax they could put it up as much as they liked and blame the government. Mrs. Thatcher recommended stripping councils of responsibility for education, leaving them with a reduced set of powers and revenues. She accused Mr. Major of making an historic error on the economy, which he refuted, files from the National Archives in London show. Meanwhile, Mr. Major, who was always caricatured as grey and dull, turned down a fancy menu during a VIP RAF flight to Africa in 1991. He wrote a note saying, "As long as there's soup and cheese and biscuits, I'll be all right." Tory ministers wanted Jaguars instead of cheaper Rovers. Sir Geoffrey Howe begged to keep his Jag in 1989 after leaving the Foreign Office. Trade Minister Alan Clark got an official Jag by paying himself. But it was felt he should be promoting the Austin Montego, like other ministers, an official said.